Joining me for another edition of our AI Resources for Educators. I'm Reggie Bain. I'm at the South Carolina Governor's School for Science and Mathematics, and this work is, as always, supported by generous funding from Google. Today I'm going to be talking to you about Claude. It's going to be basically a quick start guide for educators, and we're going to talk about how to make Claude projects to help you in your daily work. So first of all, what is Claude? Claude is a large language model, or LLM, developed by Anthropic. And amongst the many things it's good at, it excels in particular at processing very long documents and conversations, which has pros and cons. We're going to focus on its projects feature, which allows us to organize multiple files and prompts in a single space. And Claude allows us to upload diverse sets of documents in various formats to have deeply contextual work. Claude Projects basically creates a dedicated workspace to organize lots and lots of files and prompts in a single area. You can add text content, upload attachments from your device like we're going to in a minute, attach a GitHub repository, or even give it access to your Google Drive. And when you log into Claude for the first time, you can actually access a lot of other resources where you give it access to your web browser or other applications on your machine. Claude projects are ideal for managing really complex tasks that requires deep, contextually heavy work, and especially if it's across a body of related documents that are hard to get all in the same place. We can set project instructions and upload quite a bit of context, more than you could probably ever need for this kind of thing. And as always, we're going to need to use effective prompting. So we can set things like project instructions. Perhaps you tell Claude to be an educational consultant. Perhaps you need output in a very specific, highly structured format, like a 3-paragraph summary. Maybe you need lots and lots of necessary source files. We're also going to use iterative prompts to try to refine our resources over time and deepen the initial responses, which may be rather superficial, or maybe you just didn't put enough context in to begin with. And we're going to need to clearly state any constraints or word limits. For example, if we're making a slide, we want to say, let's create 3 to 5 concise bullet points with 25 words or less. Otherwise, Claude tends to give extremely verbose responses. And as always, we want to consider ethics. We want to prioritize student data privacy, avoid putting personally identifying info into any of these publicly used large language models. And as with any AI system, you have to keep the human in the loop. Before any decisions get made, humans need to review, and particularly subject matter experts, need to review any AI insights. And we're going to primarily use this as a brainstorming, editing, summarizing, and flagging tool. Not necessarily something to replace the teacher or do key things like provide detailed student feedback on work, especially when the work is written. So let's take a look at Claude projects. So now that we have Claude open, we are going to go to the project section, which can be found here. And we're going to click New Project. And let's say what we're working on. Let's do mathematical physics. What are we going to do now? We're going to describe the project goals and subject. So let's say we are designing a course to teach mathematical physics to advanced high school students in the 11th and 12th grade who have a background in calculus and computer science and physics. We're going to click Create Project. All right, this takes us to this screen. So basically there are a few things to keep in mind here. One is going to be our prompt window. So here is where we can enter in our prompt and we can choose the model. So it gives us a couple of options here. So if you are on the free subscription like we are here, the main one we're going to use is Sonnet 4.5. You can also use Haiku, which is like for just basic question answering. Sonnet's going to give you more thoughtful responses. If you upgrade to the premium version, you can use their Opus 4.5. It tends to use your tokens really, really quickly, but it is good for some deep work. What are some other things you can do? You can click here for extended thinking, there is a default amount of time that Claude will record, or rather respond for. And you can, by hand, when it stops, tell it to keep thinking, or you can click this and it will do more thinking initially as well. There are some other tools you can click on here, what style you want it to talk with, whether or not it has access to the internet, and you can manage what applications that Claude has access to. And here you can just click to upload a file, take a screenshot, or add from a GitHub repository. That's primarily going to be if you're doing some coding with Claude, which is what a lot of people use it for. You can connect tools here. Here's some of the things you can connect. A lot of these are not going to be useful to us in this very context, but could be depending on the type of work you're doing. And the number of apps that you can connect vary from text messages to financial information to your web browser. That's going to be a big one. To anything from Tableau, which is a way of making dashboards, and lots of other applications. Here, we are going to insert the instructions. What I'm going to say is, you are an educational consultant who provides a subject matter expert with feedback and iterative improvements to course resources. And we'll say that we are developing a new course for advanced high school students on mathematical physics. We'll also give them the background of each student. This sets the tone for what we want Claude to know, and we can also give it further context after this. We've also added that you can ask whatever follow-up questions you think might be useful in case it needs to know any information. Let's save these instructions. The first thing I'm going to do is add some files. We could add anything from the text from emails to text messages to whatever we need. I am going to add a syllabus that I use for my GSSM courses. So now it has access to this whole syllabus, which is a PDF. It automatically parses it for you. The reason I do this is because our syllabi will likely have very specific formatting. Lots of subheadings, lots of course details, and Claude has no idea about that. So if you wanted to generate a new syllabus, adjusting the course content, it needs to know the type of style we need. So now it's not going to get all this right from the jump. We're going to need to do iterative improvements. You always have to keep, like I said before, the human in the loop. So let's do the following. We're going to tell it to draft a syllabus for our mathematical physics class. And we're going to tell it to keep the format in a very, very similar style to the syllabus I've given it. We're also going to give it a couple of topics that we want the course to focus on. We can refine this later. We just want it to generate something for us immediately. And it's going to help do things like adapt the language of some of the key sections of the syllabus, and it'll also help us update the dates. So now I've told Claude a few things. We're going to draft a syllabus for a mathematical physics class. We're going to use the syllabus I've given as a guide, keep all the same sections, but we're going to adjust the dates to fall of 2026. It's going to adjust what the textbook is, and it's going to spit out a bunch of stuff. So notice that I didn't tell it to give me a PDF, so it just gave me output text that I might have to copy paste. In my experience, it doesn't always generate the prettiest PDFs, and it's not super usable, so it might actually be better just to start with generating text that you can then copy paste into a PDF you format yourself. But notice a couple of things that it did. One, it gave me a topic coverage, but it has a bunch of questions for me. So it asks about, for one semester, are you planning to cover classical mechanics only, focus primarily on quantum mechanics with Susskind as a background? It asks me, it says the physics syllabus has weekly hands-on labs. So it's kind of wild that it knows this. What kind of labs is this new class going to have? It's asking, given the AP Calculus background, will you be covering Lagrangian and Hamiltonian mechanics? Which, when I taught this class at the Governor's School in 2021, that's exactly what we did. So it's kind of wild that it's suggesting this. It's also asking to clarify the textbook. So this is the kind of iterative improvements that you can do. This is and also why I asked it to ask me follow-up questions. So I would, taking the next steps to keep this video relatively short, I would answer all of these questions in as much detail as possible and tell it to follow the structure of the syllabus I gave it as closely as possible. But if you have any other questions, I think this is a pretty good introduction to why Claude projects are so useful. As you make more and more resources, you can store these outputs as context so that Claude remembers it. So what eventually will happen is it will generate a document. Like, let's say generate a baseline syllabus as a PDF from what we've made so far. And it's going to make a lot of assumptions. We obviously could make this much, much, much better, but it's going to start inputting files for you. You'll see what it's doing is generating artifacts. And it's actually smart enough to make code that writes a PDF and then to have the code delete itself after it makes a printable PDF. So it's kind of wild how quickly these agentic systems are advancing. So you can see it's running a bunch of HTML code that it will then turn into a PDF that we can download. After it's done, what we'll be able to do is go up to this menu here and we'll be able to download it or save it to our project as further context. But if you have any other questions, please feel free to email me at rbain@governors.school. And thank you so much for joining.